You've probably all heard of Dianetics, right? He started with it in 1950. And my husband and his parents were in 1950. So they have some great stories of the old days. And it was a lot different then, it really was. And they would have these little groups and they'd do auditing. And Hubbard believed there was the reactive mind and the analytical mind. Do you guys all know Dianetics? Do I need to tell you that or not? You want to know? Okay. Well, the analytical mind is just like a computer. It's computing, it's recording data, it's like a data bank, right? And the reactive mind is filled, Hubbard said, with moments, mental image pictures of moments of pain and unconsciousness. Now, we all have those, right? Is there anybody here who can say you don't have a moment of pain and unconsciousness? One way or the other. Or loss, sadness, right? Excuse me. So he said, if you went into session, you could not only erase these incidents, you could get clear. And clear, he said back then in 1950, you would have a perfect IQ. You would have a perfect memory. You would have no pain, and you'd be able to, you know what I mean? And as I say it, I see you shaking your head, and I mean, I know. I have to tell you all this. The conversation we're having here today, I probably never had with, I mean, I've told this about Dianetics, but I'm going to tell you a lot of things I never talked to anyone in Scientology about, because you can't. So you have to understand, you get in, and there's no one there to discuss things with. If you disagree, you have to go to cramming and get corrected, and they have to fix you. You must have misunderstood words, like Tom Cruise with the study tech. It's because you don't understand certain words. That's why. Or your ethics are out, or you're connected to someone who's antagonistic to Scientology or something. You know, they have some reason for any reason why you're not getting it. But anyway, Dianetics is the reactive mind, the analytical mind. He said you could erase the reactive mind, and then you're clear. Okay? And what happened in truth, now I didn't know this till I got out, but in truth, the very first clear, he had an event at the Shrine Auditorium, and he had the lady, you know this story, and he asked her, I think, what color was her tie the day before? What color was his tie the day before, right? And she couldn't remember. And that was the beginning of, they can't make it clear. They can't. They can't say they can't, and Hubbard was into money. And Hubbard said, if you want to make money, start a religion, right? And Dianetics wasn't working. So it was, and you know, a lot of things happened with Dianetics. So he switched into Scientology, right? And with Scientology, and this is what truly happens. You attest to clear. Now you're not supposed to have any pains, right? And you don't for maybe an hour or a day or whatever. But all of a sudden, something comes back. Whatever your problems are, they come back. Now it's really horrible, right? Because you've attested, and everybody's like congratulating you. You're now clear. And now you've got the secret, you know, I have a headache, right? What now? So you go into what they call a registrar, which is someone that gets more money from you. And or you know, whoever, one of the technical people, and you say, you know what, I know I'm clear, but I have headaches. And they came back. And they say, look, we can't tell anybody else this, but we're going to tell you this. There's another level that you need to do. Right? And it is going to cost quite a bit of money, but it's worth it because it'll handle your headaches. So now you're like, okay, now I have epilepsy. I haven't had a seizure in 20 years, but back when I got in, I joined their Sea organization. I was in it for a while, and then they routed me to this yo-ho who wasn't medically trained, and he said, Tory, you can't be on medication and be in the Sea Org. We're the top people on the planet. So they started getting me off my medication. And I brought a reference on this, because they say, and this is a good thing for you guys to know, because it's kind of spooky when you think of it. Now, wait a minute. Let me see. I'm always shuffling my papers. This is my downfall of speaking. All right, now hang on a second, because this is a good reference on, okay. One thing that should be well understood, this is a quote from Hubbard. We have the actual technology, this is from 10 August 73, on PTS handling. PTS stands for potential trouble source, okay? And a PTS person is anybody who's ill, sick, anything. If you with the cane, PTS, right? It doesn't matter. Glasses, PTS. Right? You know, it's like anything that's wrong with you, that's natural human qualities that everybody has. You get a headache, PTS, right? So now you've got to find who's the suppressive in your environment. And a suppressive person is the most evil person in the world, which they've now declared me a suppressive person, and I'm proud to say I am, by the way. But here's what he says about PTS. that all illness in greater or lesser degrees and all foul-ups stem directly and only from a PTS condition, meaning you're connected to somebody's suppressor. So, getting rid of the condition requires 3 basic actions. A, discover. B, handle or disconnect. Okay, so now I'll explain to you what happens on that. I got in, I had the epilepsy, right? They route me to this guy, he says, you got to get off all your medication. So I took, I think, 3 pills a day at the time. I'm taking like a half of one. And I start having grand mal seizures, and they're orgs, right? And they're like, Tory, your postulates are wrong. Now, postulates are like your decisions. So I'm coming out of it like, oh, I'm completely screwed up, right? And they're like, your postulates are wrong. And I'm like, you know what? I'm so mad. And Ann had asked me, how did you wake up? And that was one of the beginning awakening calls for me. It took a while, and I started having seizures, and my mom, thank God, bless her soul, she died last year, but she started saying, Tory, they're going to kill you. And I'd say, Mom, Dianetics is going to handle this. It is. And she'd say, no, it's not. You know, and so anyway, we'd hang up. I'd have another seizure. I finally knocked my front teeth out in the shower. She said, Tory, they're going to kill you. You've got to get back on your medication. And I'm like, no. You know, I was like such a true believer on this. And you're surrounded by all these people saying the auditing will fix it. It will. You need to take more calcium and magnesium. You have to take all these vitamins. So I had like this whole tray of things. I lived with this lady and her 2 little kids. And I'd get up in the morning trying to get to my vitamin tray to take down all these vitamins before I'd have a seizure, right? And I'd get the vitamin tray, I'd have a mini Petit Mal, which you just black out, and bam, all the vitamins would be on the floor. And little Nathaniel would come in and say, Mommy, Tory dropped all her vitamins again today. It was just horrible. But anyway, finally I went out on a date, and I told my mom I'm going out on a date. And she called me the next day, and she said, how was your date? And I said, what date? And she said, Tory, that's it. I am flying out there to get you if you don't get back on your medication. They are going to kill you. Okay, and then from that point on, I did start taking my medication, and that was really kind of the beginning of my own little wake-up. You know, I mean, it took me 30 years. I'm a slow learner, but, you know, but I did start my own little bridge to total freedom. That's what Hubbard called it. It's the bridge to total freedom. And I knew I couldn't do his bridge, so I had to do my own bridge, right? I mean, I was next to their bridge, but not really totally their bridge. Okay, so basically we got with Dianetics. Oh yeah, this is the thing I wanted to tell you guys. This is a funny story. Now they believe in past lives, right? Do you guys know that? No. They do. Well, Hubbard said in Dianetics, you know, you live more than one life, right? You know, if you ever met someone and you go, I know this person, well, that's because you knew him in another lifetime, right? So that made sense because I had met a lot of people I thought I knew them, so I thought this makes sense. So I'm at Denny's. This is like in '69. I'm a hippie, just right out of, you know, just all my other wacky stuff. And I sit down at this table and this guy says, I had a great session today. And I said, really? What happened? And he said, I realized I'm Julius Caesar. And I said, you're kidding me. It's a good thing I didn't go to medical school, you know, because I wanted to sort of go to medical school, but I thought, well, you'd never meet Julius Caesar there. So I'm kind of impressed, and I'm really honored. You know, I'm sitting here with Julius Caesar. I believe him, right? And so then I say, well, thank you very much. It was great meeting you. I got to go. And I go to another table. Same day, I sit down, and this guy says, I had a great session. And I said, really? What happened? And he says, I realized I'm Julius Caesar. And at that point, you're kind of like, this is horseshit. You know, pardon my language, but it's like, come on. But part of Scientology is you can never invalidate someone else's win, right? Ever. So if he thinks he's Julius Caesar, even if you think, no way, Jose, you can't really say anything about it. So that builds in the delusion. Do you see what I mean? Because you're not really saying, come on, man, I just met another guy who said he was Julius Caesar. You know, right?